Every government insists its promises will last forever. Every time, history provides a different answer. Your savings account, your salary, your government bonds, all of them are paper promises, agreements that depend on institutional stability. And when war comes, that stability evaporates faster than most people can react. This isn't speculation, it's documented pattern. War doesn't just destroy infrastructure and lives, it accelerates the most brutal wealth transfer mechanism in economic history. Value shifts from those holding paper to those holding tangible assets, from the unprepared majority to the disciplined few. The question isn't whether this transfer will happen during the next major crisis. History has already answered that. The question is, which side of the transfer will you be on? This is the blueprint, the historical playbook for financial resilience when systems fail.
War is expensive, catastrophically expensive, and governments facing existential conflict have only two options: raise taxes or print money. They always choose both. Consider the Weimar Republic, 1923. Germany, devastated by World War I and crushed by reparation payments, faced an impossible choice: pay the debt or collapse the economy. They chose the printing press. The German mark, which traded at 4 to the dollar in 1914, reached 4 trillion to the dollar by November 1923. A loaf of bread that cost half a mark before the war cost 200 billion marks at the peak of hyperinflation. Let that sink in. 200 billion marks for bread. Workers were paid twice daily because their morning wages would be worthless by afternoon. Pensioners who had saved their entire lives watched their savings become literally less valuable than the paper they were printed on. Wheelbarrows of cash bought what a single coin had purchased months earlier. This wasn't unique. The Confederacy, during the American Civil War, printed graybacks to finance the war effort. By 1865, Confederate currency had lost 99% of its value. A Confederate soldier's monthly salary couldn't buy a single meal. Here's the mechanism. Governments cannot resist the temptation to dilute their money. War expenditures outpace tax revenue. The printing press becomes the only politically viable solution. And every new banknote dilutes the value of every existing one. This is hidden taxation. Your savings didn't disappear. They were quietly confiscated through inflation. The government took your wealth without ever touching your bank account. But here's what the history books often omit. While most people's wealth evaporated, some got wealthier. Those holding real assets, land, gold, commodities, watched their relative wealth explode as paper money collapsed. The transfer had begun, from paper to tangible, from unprepared to positioned. Economic shocks don't just destroy wealth, they redistribute it. And throughout history, that redistribution follows a predictable pattern: forced sellers and opportunistic buyers. Let's examine two defining examples separated by 6 centuries. The Black Death, 1348 to 1353. The plague killed between 30 and 60% of Europe's population. The immediate result was catastrophic, but the economic consequence was structural transformation. Labor became scarce, land became abundant. Feudal lords who had extracted rents from hundreds of peasants suddenly had empty fields and no one to work them. Land values collapsed. Agricultural production plummeted. But for those who survived with liquidity, merchants who held gold or silver, not just land, this was opportunity. They acquired estates at fire sale prices from desperate nobles who needed immediate cash to survive. The plague didn't just kill people, it killed a social order and created a new wealthy class from those who could buy when others had to sell. Fast forward to 2008, the global financial crisis. The mechanism was different, the pattern was identical. Subprime mortgage collapse, credit freeze, mass foreclosures. Millions of families lost their homes. Property values in some American cities dropped 50 to 70%. Entire neighborhoods emptied. And who bought? Those with cash reserves, institutional investors, foreign capital, individual buyers who had maintained liquidity while others leveraged themselves into insolvency.
By 2012, these buyers had acquired assets worth pennies on the dollar. By 2020, those same assets had appreciated massively. The transfer was complete, from the over-leveraged to the liquid, from forced sellers to patient buyers. Now connect this to war. War creates economic shockwaves, supply chain disruptions, capital flight, currency devaluation, infrastructure destruction. These shocks force rapid liquidation. Families flee conflict zones and sell property for whatever they can get. Businesses facing supply shortages liquidate inventory. Governments, desperate for foreign currency, sell state assets at discounts. The pattern is eternal. Crises reward those with reserves and punish those without them. History doesn't care about fairness. It cares about positioning. And positioning means holding assets that can't be inflated away while maintaining liquidity to acquire what others are forced to sell. To achieve financial resilience, we must understand what assets hold value when paper promises collapse. The answer isn't mystical. It's historical. Across every major crisis, war, plague, financial collapse, certain asset classes consistently preserve and grow wealth. Tangible assets, the foundation. Precious metals, gold and silver, have maintained value for 5,000 years, not because of industrial use, because they're non-sovereign stores of value. No government can print them. No central bank can debase them. When Confederate dollars became worthless, gold remained gold. During Weimar hyperinflation, workers who converted paper wages to gold daily preserved their purchasing power. Those who trusted their bank accounts lost everything. Land and property, the ultimate tangible asset. You can't print real estate. You can't inflate it away. Population may decline, but land remains. The Black Death proved this. Those who acquired land during the crisis held wealth that appreciated for generations. Modern application? During currency crises from Argentina to Zimbabwe, property owners preserved wealth while bank depositors watched their accounts evaporate. Essential commodities, food, energy, raw materials. During war, these become scarce and therefore valuable. Oil, grain, metals, the building blocks of civilization. When supply chains break and currencies collapse, commodities maintain purchasing power. Venezuelan hyperinflation, 2016 to 2020. The Bolivar lost 99.9% of its value. But farmers with food, traders with gasoline, they never went hungry. They possessed real value when paper became fiction. Human capital, the ultimate hedge. But here's the insight most financial advisors won't tell you. The most valuable asset isn't what you own, it's what you can do. During every major collapse, money loses meaning, but production never does. The baker in Weimar Germany, the craftsman in post-plague Europe, the farmer in revolutionary France. These people were never poor for long. Why? Because they created tangible value, regardless of currency stability. This is human capital, skills that produce necessities, abilities that can't be confiscated or inflated, knowledge that generates value even when financial systems fail. Learn to grow food, master a trade, develop skills in medicine, repair, construction, anything that creates real value. During the siege of Leningrad, skilled mechanics could trade repairs for food that gold couldn't buy. Production trumps possession when systems collapse. Debt, the hidden trap. Now the critical warning. Debt is a weapon that fires both directions. In stable times, debt is leverage. In crisis, it becomes catastrophic vulnerability. The Asian financial crisis, 1997. Countries like Thailand and Indonesia had borrowed heavily in foreign currency, primarily US dollars. When their currencies collapsed, their debt burdens multiplied overnight. What was manageable became impossible. Entire nations faced bankruptcy. Individual lesson: never hold debt in a currency you don't control, and minimize debt in any currency when crisis indicators appear. During deflation, debt crushes you. Your obligations remain fixed while your income collapses.
During hyperinflation, your salary becomes worthless while debt obligations may adjust. Either scenario is dangerous without careful management. The disciplined position: minimal debt, maximum liquidity, tangible assets. The ability to buy when others must sell.
Every crisis in history, every war, every collapse, every transfer follows the same brutal pattern. Value flows from paper promises to tangible assets, from the unprepared majority to the disciplined minority, from passive holders to active acquirers. This isn't philosophy, it's economic mechanics. Inflation destroys paper wealth. Crisis forces liquidation. Those positioned with liquidity and real assets acquire what others must sell at desperate prices. The Weimar Republic taught us that governments will sacrifice your savings to survive. The Black Death taught us that crisis creates opportunity for the prepared. 2008 taught us that leverage destroys and liquidity conquers. The pattern hasn't changed in 600 years, and it won't change in the next crisis. So here's your choice. You can assume permanence, trust that your currency will remain stable, your bank solvent, your salary sufficient. History shows this assumption is financially fatal during crisis. Or you can prepare. Diversify into tangible assets, build human capital, maintain liquidity. Position yourself not as a forced seller, but as a patient buyer when the next transfer begins. Because it will begin. Not if, when. The question history will answer isn't whether the transfer happens, it's which side you were on when it did. History warns us that this transition is brutal. The unprepared lose everything. The prepared position themselves for generational wealth. The blueprint is clear. The historical evidence is undeniable. The choice is yours. Will you be the seller under pressure or the buyer seizing opportunity? History doesn't repeat, but when you ignore its patterns, it will crush you all the same.